Thank you for joining us for this sermon podcast from United Church on the Green, located in New Haven, Connecticut. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are invited and welcome. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to learn more about our open and affirming ministry at United Church on the Green, please visit our website at unitednewhaven.org. Thank you.
Well, good morning, people who are filling this congregation on this very chilly morning. I know that it is daylight savings time. I know it's cold outside. I know it's also the St. Patrick's Day parade, but you're here. Hallelujah. If no one has had a chance to tell you that we are really glad that you are here today at the United Church on the Green, let me tell you how very glad I am you are here. Welcome to all who have no church home, who need strength, who want to follow Christ, who have doubt, or who do not believe. Welcome to new visitors, and welcome to old friends. Welcome to children and to grandparents, to mothers and fathers, and to single people. And welcome to families of all configurations, to young and to old, to believers and questioners, to questioning believers, and welcome to everyone. No matter who you are, where you are on life's journey, you are more than welcome here. Will you pray with me, please? Dear God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our Redeemer. Amen. Today, the second Sunday of Lent, we have two readings from Scripture, one from Genesis and one from the Gospel of John, from the Old Testament and from the New Testament. I'm going to ask you today to try and identify with both main characters in these stories. Abram before he became Abraham, and Nicodemus in the changing landscape of the United Church on the Green. The first 11 chapters of Genesis is a history of the failures of the people of Yahweh to do things that God had called them to do. Chapter 12 introduces a different tact that Yahweh is going to take to try and do a new thing, choosing one person through which Yahweh will attempt once again to effect the divine work in our world. So Yahweh chooses Abram, who is given an incredibly hard task. Go from your country, go from your kin and the house of your father to the land that I will show you. There are increasingly difficult tasks in this command, suggests John Hobart. Anyone who has experienced the movement from one's native land to another land not her own knows well the wrenching feeling of leaving the loved and the familiar for the unknown place with its difficult cultures and different customs. And perhaps most dangerously, the chosen one, Abram, is asked to go into the darkest wilderness to the land that I will show you, says Yahweh. Now you might ask, and I'm sure he did, where is this unknown place? How is one to find it? Is it a long journey? How perilous will it be traveling into this mysterious world? These are momentarily very difficult demands that Abram was given. But Yahweh does not send Abram out without some promises, though those promises it could be very vague to the receiver. Yahweh says, I will make of you a great nation, and I bless you. Well, Abram's story is a pretty powerful for one of us to be carrying with us as we continue the journey through the desert this Lent of this year. God spoke to him and told him to leave behind everything that was familiar to him, and God will show him where to go and to trust him. Now, Abram was 75 years old, no spring chicken, as we might say, but was filled with a love for Yahweh and trusted in his God. Dear people, leave everything familiar. Is this not what we are being called to do as well as we continue this journey of creating a new congregation? Abram shows us how to go forward when we do not know the road. And as Nura Parrish writes, when you give up your own will to follow the will of God, you are made new. Instead of having control, you give up power. Instead of knowing your destination, you try and be faithful during the journey. Instead of being sure of yourself, you become sure of God. Now, I am reminded that in September of 2012, I was living in Wellesley and loving my ministry there. I had been there 11 years as pastor and had formed deep ministerial relationships. I had raised my last 2 children there through middle school and high school and the beginnings of college, and I had put down very deep roots. Then just as suddenly out of nowhere, it was time for me to move on. I left everything familiar behind, perhaps even more than I could identify at the time, and moved to Chicago to work for a 1,200-member, multi-staffed, active, vital, and alive church in the city of Chicago. I loved it. I trusted God to guide me there, and indeed, God did. And then 2 years later, I felt a call to come here to New Haven, once again calling me to leave behind all that was familiar and to trust in God. And am I ever glad I did. It has been perhaps one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I have felt blessed, and I pray those who have blessed me are also blessed. God has been good. And so I ask you, what about each and every one of you? Have you experienced this kind of call or experienced something like this before in your lives? Nod or shake your head, so I get the sense. More of you, I want to see more. And now the church is being asked to do the same. To leave behind all that is familiar and to trust God to guide us to a new place and a new time. And we are promised, indeed, that we will be blessed. In many ways, you see, it was a leap of faith for me, and it will be for all of us too. Change is hard. Desert places are full of times for doubts and inner turmoil and thirst. And people, it is a journey. And then we meet Nicodemus, who comes to Jesus in the dark. Perhaps he was afraid to have the other Pharisees see him, but he came to Jesus. And Jesus says to him, Nicodemus, don't be surprised that I said to you, you must be born anew. When you give up your own will to follow the will of God, you are made new. The wind blows where it chooses, and you hear the sound of it, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes. So it is with everyone who is being born of the Spirit. Dear people, this is a story of new birth, of new beginnings, and the power of the Holy Spirit. If indeed the Spirit blows where it will, this gives us tremendous freedom when we think about how best to respond to the challenges and the opportunities that are ahead of us today. As David Luce says, when we give the familiar places up, We feel like we are sailing in uncharted waters or driving down a foreign and a forbidding road. Except that we are not alone. The Holy Spirit accompanies and empowers us to face a future that we may feel is uncertain, but has been secured by the death and by the resurrection of Jesus Christ. From this perspective, the anxiety that many of us feel, there is no roadmap, can be transformed into excitement, which means that we are free. We don't have to do things the way they've always been done before. We can experiment, we can risk, we can fail, we can learn and grow in ways that we never imagined, because the Spirit of Christ will blow us in directions that we hadn't even imagined. And furthermore, in the United Church on the Green, we have good and solid people in our church who are looking faithfully at our finances, protecting our endowment, looking at our buildings, and are putting these necessary facts into the larger perspective of what is feasible and which calls on each and every one of us to have good stewardship. Alice McKinsey reminds us that new birth involves leaving behind the past and breaking into the present. Like physical birth, sometimes it takes longer than we would like, and at other times it comes upon us before we are even ready. So, dear people, see how the readings today invited us to enter into the narratives by identifying with various characters and changing as they do throughout the story. In honor of Nicodemus during this Lenten season, let us participate in his and in our own new birth. Let's do our part in the process of breaking free of the old and entering into the new and abundant life that God has in store for each and for every one of us. Now rather than later, we can feel the uncontainable Holy Spirit at work in the possibilities of our new congregation. It is surely, slowly giving birth. May it be so. Amen.